I'm not even remotely as funny as Ben. And I'm also not a command line wizard with Git. So if you're into any of those things, you really need to catch the recording. And if you haven't seen that yesterday, you're probably very confused about the hat right now. But that's all right. So I'm not, again, a command line wizard with Git. But I really love the Git integration in Android Studio, which is why I'm talking about it. This is a talk I've prepared before I've joined JetBrains, but I think it also really nicely fits the JetBrains attitude of wanting to teach people how to use their tools efficiently to get their work done. So it kind of all lines up. I'm going to show you a bunch of different things, bunch of Git operations going through Android Studio here, and I definitely don't expect you to remember all of this. If you find one or two new cool things that you can actually use in your day-to-day work, I'm already quite content with that. I also, of course, wanted to pull up a table of contents here of just a brief summary of what we're going to talk about today. First, we'll take a look at exploring logs and history in Git. Then we'll do a bit of navigating between branches. Then we'll start making changes in the project and managing those changes using change lists. And finally, for a nice finale, we're going to take a look at how you can rewrite history in Git. Again, all of this in the IDE. Let's get started then. I'm using the Now in Android sample project. You're probably familiar with it. And this is a great point for me to ask if you can see all of these things from the back okay? Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Thank you. Looking at the Git panel, we have these three sections in there. On the left-hand side, we have a navigator for all of the branches of the project, local and remote. In the middle, we have the Git log view. And then in the right-hand side, we have the detail view, which is showing the details of whatever commit we have selected. I want to talk very briefly about the branches view on the left here. First of all, you can hide this to make more space for yourself, which is useful to know. And also, if you use the kind of prefixes that Now in Android has, where you can see that branches have a bunch of prefixes based on the authors and things like that, this option here to group by directory is really useful because you get actual, an actual tree view based on those prefixes. And if you double-click on any of these branches, that's actually a shortcut for filtering your middle view here to just commits in that branch. So if you're exploring, that's really handy. That just sets up a branch filter like this. You also have other filters up here. You can, of course, filter by user, by date. If you dig deep enough here in the date selector, you get some really ancient UI, which is quite exciting. And you can also filter by path in here, which is one of my favorite filters to use because you can, for example, choose select in tree, and let's say that you want to look at specifically commits that are about the search feature. So if you do that, you'll again filter to only commits that touch something within that folder. This can also be really useful if you're working on, say, a Kotlin multi-platform project and you have a monorepo where you have the iOS and Android app side by side. And if you, for example, don't work with the iOS parts day to day, you can use this to have your Git log filtered by default to just things that touch Android. And then you can always just clear this filter if you want to take a look at all the actual commits that are in the repository. Let's take a look at the right-hand panel as well, which has the details of the commits. If we go through commits, we see, of course, which files they touched. Importantly, you can also select multiple commits like this, which will show a summary of all of the changes in those commits. And for any of these, we can, of course, jump in there, double-click it, or use Command D to open a diff view. And within diff views, it's useful to know that you have this option to collapse unchanged fragments. So if you have a bunch of small changes across a large file, if you use this, it will just collapse everything that hasn't changed so that you can focus on what has. Cool. Let's keep moving. Something else that's worth knowing about this detail view here is that whenever you're looking at a commit, you can always see which branch it's currently a part of. So here, for example, I'm looking at a commit from a feature branch, so that's only part of the feature branch. But if we scroll back and select some commit from down below, let's find something like this. then you can see all of the branches listed here, which include this commit. So if you're ever wondering if a given commit is part of your feature branch that you're working on, or if it has made it into the 1.22 release branch or something, this is a really easy way to check that. You can also customize this view in the middle, which can be useful. For example, if you need to refer to Git hashes a lot, say you have that displayed somewhere in your application's debug build, and you just want to check which point in time you've built that, you can customize this view, add more columns, for example, Git hashes and the like. Yeah, we've seen some filtering. Let's do some more exploration of the history like that. We've already seen this path filter being used. You can also do this kind of the other way around. You can start from the project view, and let's say that you want to see changes that were made to the convention plugins in the project. Then you can also always go Git and then show history for a given module, which gives you a new Git log panel down here, and it will only show changes that have modified something within the build logic folder. We can also do this more granularly. So we've looked at history for entire folders until now, but we can also do this for files. Again, I can right-click a file that I have open. I can search with the mouse for git show history, or you can just use action search with Command-Shift-A and do the same thing. So you could just type in show history, and that would also give you that. And if you're doing this for a single file, there's a special view for this, which has this really nice compacted summary of all of the commits that have touched this file. And as you're paging through them, of course, on the right-hand side, you can see what the actual change was. And you can always right-click any of these and show in Git log to get into the full context of that change, any commits that surrounded, any other files that were changed at the same time, and so on. I want to go one more step here with granularity. Because we can also look at history of a very specific selection within a file. So I can, for example, select the Kotlin version in the version catalog here, and I can use show history for selection. And that again gives me a special view which only takes a look at changes to that one line. So I can just hop back in history here, and I'm only going to see changes that have touched the line with the Kotlin version. And after a while, as lines shift, some neighboring lines. Something that you probably, hopefully, know how to use is the annotate with git blame feature, which is a great way of taking a look at who touched a given line in files. This again is something that you can customize, so you can always go into view configuration, and if you want to, for example, show the full name of the people who made the changes, you can do that. And this is also a great way of diving into the history of some change. So let's say that we're interested in when and how the protobuf plugin was added here. We can click here in the gutter, which gives us that commit in the commit logs, or we can go right-click and show diff, which gives us a diff view of when that change happened to the line the last time. And you can actually keep doing this over and over again to investigate in your history. So you can just go ahead and git blame again, and then you can keep diving, show diff again, and so on to get through all the history of a line. We, of course, have basic searching as well. So if we just come back here to the log, if I search for something like room, I'm going to get all of the commits where the title or description or something includes the word room, which makes sense. You can also grab a hash at any time. I have accidentally clicked something there. So you can also copy a hash of a commit at any time here. So you can just right-click and copy a revision number, which also has a shortcut, which is all modifiers you can find on your keyboard and the letter C. And once you have a Git hash from anywhere, whether that's from GitHub or a Slack message of someone wanting you to look at something, you can also just use these search tools in Android Studio. And if you search everywhere, that will also find the commit for you. And there's also a specific Git search window, which can do the same thing. Or if you search for something, just general text, it will find branches for you as well as commits that contain whatever you search for. Okay, let's say that you're working on your own feature branch, as I'm doing here with this various improvements branch, but you're actually interested in some changes from another branch that were being made. If I hop through this branch here about baseline profiles, I can see that some of the build Gradle files have been changed. And maybe I see something interesting in the diffs there that I actually want to bring into my own project, or my own branch, sorry. And it's quite a hassle to somehow switch branches, copy the code from that branch in whatever state exists on there, then come back to my own branch, include those changes, and so on. Luckily, we can also always just right-click any point in the Git history, and we can use Show Repository at Revision, which gives us this view which looks a lot like the regular project panel. But as you can see up on the top, this is showing the project at a specific point in time, so at a specific Git hash. And so I can now browse the project as it exists at that point in time in Git. And if I want to look at what the state of things is, for example, some Gradle configuration in there, I can easily grab it, and then I can just go back to my real project view with whatever branch I have checked out and include some of those changes. We can also do comparisons between various branches easily here. So let's say that I'm interested between the difference of my current branch and this other feature branch. I can always just do compare with local, and that will give me a nice diff here of what has changed in the branch compared to the one that I'm currently on. And it can also be useful to be able to compare two arbitrary branches, so not just your branch to something else, but just any branches. Let's say that, again, I'm going to choose that baseline profile branch, and let's say I want to compare it with the main branch that I have here locally. You can do that selection here in the branch browser, and then you can right-click and compare branches, which will give you a nice view of commits that exist in one branch, but not the other, as well as the other way around if there are such commits. Okay, I want to touch on navigation next a little bit. The Git navigation in Android Studio used to be on the bottom right corner, but with the new UI it has moved all the way up to the top toolbar. And there also used to be a bunch of different specific actions that are part of the toolbar, like update project and things like that, which are now removed from them by default. But you still do have this branch browser up here. You can take a look at all your remote and local branches. If you want to move between branches, you can easily check them out and so on. And you also have most Git actions here, although not all of them. So if you're a fan of using fetch, for example, then you will not find that action here up in the menu. There are a couple different ways to resolve this. You can, of course, always use action search, which is Command-Shift-A, and just type in fetch. And that's something I've done for quite some time. But if you take a look at the bottom of the dialog here, as you are looking at actions in this panel, you can actually just hit Option-Enter at any point and quickly assign a shortcut to an action. So if I hit Option-Enter, I can come up with my own fetch shortcut, which can be, all modifiers F or something like that. And if I save that, then that shortcut will now be set to perform a fetch. But if you're more a fan of mousing around and you want just regular toolbar buttons, it's also worth knowing that you can always customize the keyboard, customize the toolbar by right-clicking it. And as you can see, we have this version control widget here, and we can simply I managed to delete that. Let's try again. So I have this version control widget here, and we can always add more actions to the same menu. So again, if you want a fetch button, for example, you can customize the icon even. If you want a fetch button, you can add it there, and now you have a button that you can easily click. And I don't want to perform that right now. Yeah, and similarly, this is also worth noting, if your toolbar is just really crowded at the top, in the same menu you can clear up any stuff there that you don't need. So if you don't need the Google login stuff to be there or search everywhere because you know the shortcut for it anyway, you can just remove those things and make more space in your toolbar like that. Okay. One last thing before we start making changes is I want to take a look at using pull in Android Studio. So here, if you're on, say, the main branch, let's check that out real quick, and you start a pull, that will by default attempt to pull from the same branch on your remote. But of course, you can always pull changes from any other branch and any other remotes as well, if you have them configured. And it's worth noting that you also have all of the Git pull options here. So if you only want to pull if you can clearly fast forward in the commits, then you can easily add flags for that. And all of these flags have a nice description here. And Android Studio also makes sure that you can't add flags which are conflicting. So now things that wouldn't make sense to use with FF only are grayed out for me. And of course, these settings are remembered for the next time that you use the same action. Good. So I'm going to go back to this various improvements branch that I had going here. And we're going to start making some changes. As you can see, I already have some commits here, but let's make some more changes within our project. I'm going to go to the version catalog first. And in here, we're going to make a couple updates. So let me update the Kotlin version to the latest one. Whenever you update Kotlin, you also want to probably update the Compose compiler. So that's 1.5.8 at the moment. So let's bump that to a version that matches the Kotlin version. Then if we keep exploring, we have a JUnit version here, which is actually unused. So we can remove that. And I happen to know that I have a plugin down here, which is also unused, so we can get rid of that as well. As I'm making these changes, you can see that I have little indicators in the gutter here, right next to the line numbers, that indicate that changes have been made. Is this still visible from the back? Excellent, thank you. So for lines that are changed, I have a blue indicator. If I click that, I can always take a look at what the previous state of the line was. I can copy that previous state, should I just want to move that old code somewhere else. And I can also, of course, revert whatever changes I've made. For lines that were deleted, we have this little gray marker. And if I added new lines, that would be shown in green. And those colors are generally used everywhere to indicate the same things, including the file lists that you see whenever you're working with Git in Studio. Let's make some more changes. I'm going to hop over to the dispatchers module. This is Dagger module, which provides coroutine dispatchers. It currently has the IO and the default dispatchers, so I'm just going to take these and also provide a main dispatcher like this. And because we are using qualifiers here, I'm going to hop over to the enum and just add a new entry for the main dispatcher, and I'll make sure that I import it here in the other file. And then one last change, just so that we have more changes. If we go to the docs folder, I happen to know that we have some screenshots here that are unused anywhere. So we're just going to save delete those, and they did, in fact, delete cleanly. Now that we have some changes, we can take a look at them in the commit panel, which used to be a pop-up dialog, but it's now an embedded panel. So that you can interact with it while also working on other things within the IDE. And here we can see the change files and the deleted files. We have grouping options here, which are actually present in all of these kinds of lists when you're working with Git, where you can group your changes by module, which really just group them by the top-level Gradle modules, or you can group them by directory, so you get the full navigation tree to the specific files in that case. And you can even choose to use both if you want to group by a module first and then by directory. Again, the same thing is available in, for example, this detail view in the regular Git panel down there. Okay, so once we have changes, we can commit them, and we can start doing that by hitting Command K, which stands for commit in this case, and that will select all of our changes by default and put our focus into the commit message. Here we do have some customization options, so if we only want to commit some of these changes, we can make selections here, or if I open the diff for any of these and I want to remove just partial changes within a file, I can also do that by using these checkboxes, and then you can see on the left-hand side that I'm trying to include 2 of the 4 changes within this current file. All right, and I think with that we can actually make a commit here. Let's make this, improve project, and we can create the commit. And if we wanted to push this to a remote bench, we could hit Command-Shift-K, which is the same as Command K, but with Shift, so it's like committing harder is pushing, shortcut-wise. and we could, in this case, create a new branch. Again, you have an origin selector here, which is really useful to know about, so that you make sure that you push to the correct repository. Okay, so this commit that we've made hopefully doesn't meet anyone's standards. We've changed various unrelated things within the same commit. We have a commit message which is completely meaningless. So let's see how we can improve this. We should first get rid of this commit, but keep the changes in our project so that we can commit these things again more properly. And one way to do that would be to reset the branch to whatever the previous commit was. In that case, you again get nice descriptions, various options, and a soft reset would actually be a nice way of going about this, because that leaves all the changes in our file system, but it rolls back the commit, so we get to commit the same changes again. But if we are just trying to get rid of the latest commit in Git, we can actually also just right-click a commit, and we could revert it, which would create an extra commit for us, which you probably don't want here, or we can simply undo it, which, if we try that, cleanly gets rid of the commit. But as we can see above here, our changes are still there. It's worth knowing that whenever you're making these operations through the GUI, you can always go to the Git console here to check what actually happened in the background. That's also a nice way of learning a bit about how the command line Git tools work. So if we go to the console, we can see that the way that I've removed that commit was actually just a hard reset and a hash specified to know where we are going back to. So if something goes wrong with using the GUI, or you just don't understand what happened, you should always be able to go to this console and check out the actual commands that Studio has executed for you. Okay, so at this point, I want to talk a bit about change lists, which is going to be a way of managing your changes more nicely than just dumping everything into a single commit. And you're actually using change lists even if you don't think about them, because this changes thing here, which includes all of our changes so far, is the default change list in Android Studio. But you can, of course, create additional ones as well. So, for example, I could right-click here and go New Change List, and this could be, add main dispatcher to DI or something like that. And after that, I could grab the changes that are related to this message, and I could just drop them onto that newly created change list. You can also do this more easily by just grabbing some existing changes here, moving them to another change list, and typing in the name of a change list that doesn't exist yet. So this could be remove unused screenshots. And then that creates a change list with the given message for you automatically. Let's take a look at some more ways of how change lists show up. If we open the diff for this version catalog, where we have changed several different things, we can find essentially two different kinds of changes we've made. For one, we've updated the Kotlin version, which also brought with it the compose compiler bump, and we have removed some unused variables. And these are two different kinds of changes within the same file. So here we can right-click on any of the specific changes, for example, this one here, and move just that one change within the file to another change list. So this would be, update Kotlin to 1923. And if we scroll down, we could also grab this change here, and we could move that to the same change list. And finally, if we hop back to the regular view of the file, you can now see that some of these gutter icons, and I really hope that these are still visible, have changed. So some of them are still full color, like this one here, and if I keep making changes, these are also fully colored. But this one here now only has an outline. And this is the marker for the difference between whether something is on your current change list or on some other change list which is not active. So currently we are only seeing changes in full color from the changes change list, and then anything else, for example, this Kotlin version bump, which as we can see here is on the separate change list, is marked with just an outline. And of course you can also move things easily between change lists by using these gutter actions. So I can create a new change list here again. This can be remove unused declarations from version catalog. Let's do this all properly. And then we can do this for this last change here as well. We can move it from changes to the version catalog one. So with that, we have now neatly organized all of the changes we were making, and using change lists like this can allow us to work on multiple fairly independent parts of the project at the same time, but then commit them granularly easily. You can, of course, always switch what your active change list is. We should look at that quickly. So if I wanted to make this change list active, I can right-click and then find the option, or the shortcut for that is Control Space. So now you can see that I'm on the change list, which includes the Kotlin version bump, for example. All right. Once you're using change lists, if you hit commit, that action will now only highlight the things that are on your active change list, so that you can commit that easily. And you can also see that the commit message is pre-filled with whatever the name of the change list was. So if you are creating your change lists already with a good description of what you are doing on there, if you use an issue tracking system, maybe already include the issue number on the change list. Then later on, when you are actually making your commit, all you need to do is hit commit, and you can just go command enter immediately, and that will create a change list reusing the name. That will create a commit reusing the name of the change list. Let's actually make some of these commits. So we can commit the Kotlin version bump, for example. Then we can go to the remove screenshots change list. And as you can see, Android Studio tries to help you with cleaning up anything that you don't need anymore. For example, now I'm switching away from a change list that doesn't have anything on it, so it can just remove that for me automatically. And if I just hit Command K again and Command Enter again, I have yet again committed a change list. Okay, with the things that we have remaining here, I want to show you a few additional things that you can do with a set of changes that you have in your project. Something that I think is really handy is that you can always right-click one of these change lists and copy that as a patch to clipboard. That puts something on your clipboard. If we open up a quick Scratch file here, I can paste it and we can have a look. This is basically a regular Git patch format, and it describes what the changes on that change list were. So we can see this import being added, the new function to provide the main dispatcher, the new enum entry, and so on. And the great thing about being able to copy this easily is that you can also paste changes from your clipboard and put them onto a change list. So now that I have this on my clipboard, I could roll back all of those changes, and I could use apply patch from clipboard, which would immediately bring those exact changes back. And I could, again, select which change list those should land on. And now I'm back here having the main dispatcher set up again. You can imagine quite a few possibilities with what you can use this for. If you have changed something on your machine and you really quickly need to get that to a colleague and you don't want to go through the loop of committing it, pushing it, having them pull the branch, having them somehow grab the changes from that branch and like merge it into their own branch and so on, it might be way faster to just copy a patch file to the clipboard, send it to them, and they can just immediately drop that into their IDE and have the exact same changes that you have made on your machine. You can also be more persistent with these changes if you want. There is also an option here to create a patch where you get a full configuration wizard here. You can select which changes you want to include. You can make partial selections and so on. And instead of it going to your clipboard, you can even save this to a file and then do all kinds of things that way. All right. Let's go to the dispatchers module again. And next up, I want to talk about stashing changes and operations around that. So Git has this notion of stashing and unstashing changes. So if you have touched something in your project and you want those changes to go away temporarily, and then get them back later, you can always use stash to do that. Android Studio, of course, has support for this. If we search for stash changes, we can do that. We can leave a message here, changes. And later on, you can always use unstash changes, where you can browse all of the things that you have stashed previously, and we can use pop stash to actually remove this as we're putting the changes back into our project. But this does have a serious limitation, which is that Git doesn't know anything about change lists. Change lists exist only in the IDE, so this is not something that exists on the Git level. So whenever you move things back by unstashing it, that will just land on whatever your currently active change list is. So in this case, of course, I didn't have that many changes, so it's not that much effort to separate this again. But if you had, 5 nicely organized change lists that you were working on, then it would be quite tedious to restore them after stashing and unstashing. So there is another way of doing this, which is built right into the IDE, which is the shelf mechanism. If we grab a change list, we can always right-click and shelf those changes, which is very similar to stashing them, except in this case, this will be managed by Android Studio. Also, with stashing, you always stash all of your pending changes here. You don't get any configuration options for it. But here, again, you can do partial selections for files, for changes within files, and so on. Let's say that I want to shelf this entire change list here. You can see that the changes have now been removed from the project, so they're no longer in my file system, but they are sitting here on the shelf, which you can access next to the commit dialog. You can, of course, always unshelf this to move it back into your project. Here, again, you get configuration. You can select the target change list and all of these nice things. And you can also do this more quickly by just using these silent buttons here. So shelf silently and unshelf silently will just create a new shelf with a default name without asking you which files you want to include exactly, like this. And then unshelf will not ask you about how to restore the contents. It will just dump them all onto your active change list. And one really cool way of using this is just drag and drop. So you can grab a change list, you can drag it over to the shelf and store it there, which in this case can remove our existing change list as well. And we can always grab this, move it back to our pending commits, and we can drop it on a change list that we like. Of course, in this case, I did lose a bit of the formatting for the change list, but that's probably fine. At least we still have the same structure. As a fun fact, these shelves actually exist in the .idea folder. So if you dig in here, you can discover that anything that you have shelved is just yet again stored in a standard patch file. So if you wanted to do something really exciting, you could think about committing patch files for certain things into a repository if you don't have this excluded. But in that case, at that point, you probably should just use branches and actually create commits. Okay. I think we've covered everything around shelves. So let's keep moving and commit our remaining pending changes. I'm going to commit the one with the dispatchers first. Again, we have the commit message already. Then I'll make this one active. And here I've managed to lose some of the formatting, but I can just select all of these and then replace them with spaces, which works fine. And if I actually hit Command K to select that, we can create a commit. Here it's worth noting that if I didn't sell you on change lists, actually, who liked the idea of using change lists? Okay, that's like 50%, that's pretty good. So if I haven't sold you on using change lists, that's perfectly okay. I do want to give you one more thing that you can do here, maybe 2 more things. One thing I like to do in my projects is create just a temp change list so that any real changes that I'm working on that I want to commit later go on the default one, which is fine. But if I have something that I just change in my project temporarily and I never want to commit it, it was just for some kind of local testing, maybe faking some data or something like that, I would usually put that on the temp change list. So for example, let's say that I wanted to play around with my project and build it with K2 locally. I could add that to my configuration and then pop it over to be on the temp change list instead of the regular one. And then if I make some I don't know, if I make some meaningful changes somewhere else, whenever I hit commit, only the meaningful changes would be highlighted, and whatever I just did to play around with it locally would be safe on the temp change list. So that's one other way that you might want to use change lists, even if you're not working on multiple things at the same time. And of course, if you don't like change lists at all, but you do like Git's notion of having things unstaged and staged, that's also supported. So we can just search for enable staging area in the settings. And if we do that, the change lists will be gone. And let's say we make some changes here. Let's remove something. And whenever you have changes, you're just going to have staged and unstaged things, which will, of course, be synced with the actual Git staging status behind this. Okay, with that, we're coming to the last topic that I wanted to cover in the talk, which is modifying history. This will mostly apply if you have only done local work, or if you're working on, say, a feature branch where you're still allowed to force push, because, of course, if you can't do that, then you can really just add more commits instead of modifying existing ones as you want to make changes. But if you are lucky enough that you are in a situation where you can modify history, there are really powerful tools to do that right in the IDE. For example, let's say that I wanted to modify this last commit where I was removing some unused things from the version catalog. In that case, that's easy enough. I can just pop into the version catalog, remove whatever else was unused, and I can create a commit. I can hit amend here, use amend commit, and now that change will also be part of the same commit that I already had. But what if I need to go further back? What if I want to change the commit message of this commit, for example? Because right now I've only said that I'm updating the Kotlin version, but I've actually also bumped the Compose compiler version, which might be interesting to those who are looking at the repository. For this, we have a great renaming feature, which is just F2. So if you hit that, you can easily change an existing commit message. So here it would be, Compose compiler to 1512. And if we confirm that, we'll see that the Git operation happens, and that commit message has been changed. Again, reminder, you can always go to the console and look at the actual commands that were issued to achieve these things. Let's see what else we might want to do here. In this same commit, where we have changed the Kotlin version, we actually forgot to update the KSP version, which should always be in sync with the Kotlin version of the project. So how would we go about doing that? If this was the last commit, we could, of course, just make the change and then amend it. But in this case, this is a bit more complicated. For this, we're going to start an interactive rebase, which is essentially the largest guns you can pull out here to modify your history. And it allows you to do essentially arbitrary editing of your Git history. So as you start an interactive rebase from some point in your branch, Git will essentially replay all of the commits from that point on, and you get to make changes to how those commits are applied and what they contain along the way. In this case, when I want to just make one more change, I can select the commit that I want to change, and I can use this stop to edit feature. And if I start rebasing, you'll see that we now go back in time to that commit. That's where our head is right now. And if I just hop over here and update KSP to an appropriate version, I can create a new commit. And this can be, update KSP to whatever version that was. So I'll just grab that version and create a commit. So now if I look at the Git log, we can see that we have actually branched off from what we currently had. We have added this new commit in history. And I can now use the continue button down here to continue the rebasing, replay all the remaining commits as well. And those 3 commits have just been moved on top of the new one that I created. What if I wanted these 2 things to actually go into the same commit? I could have done a couple different things here to achieve that. One option would have been to just amend the commit instead of creating the new one, which does work fine in the middle of an interactive rebase. I can also just do another interactive rebase and select these 2 commits that I want to combine into a single one. And I can either squash or fix up these commits. If I use squash, as you can see, that will combine the commit messages and descriptions from both commits. So the first one would end up being the title of the new commit by default, and the rest would end up as part of the description. Alternatively, instead of squashing, I can also use fix up, where the commit message of the second commit would simply disappear and its contents would be merged back into the first commit. So if I just start rebasing now, you'll see that the KSP commit that was separate previously disappears. And if I take a look at the changes of the commit, it now includes the things that I've done across both of the initial commits. We can also move commits around in history, which is quite useful. Let's look at the dispatchers module again and hop over here to the enums that I've used. So let's say that we always like our enum entries sorted alphabetically. This is something that I've broken by adding this new entry just at the top of the list. We can use one of my favorite IDE features, which is just sort lines, to do the alphabetic sorting. And let's say that I just want to lazily commit this to the end of my branch. With interactive rebase, I can actually move this back into the same commit where I originally touched things with the main dispatcher. So I can start a rebase, I can drag this to be sorted after that commit, and then again I can use squash or fix up to combine them. So if I hit a rebase, my latest commit has disappeared, and if we go into the history of this main dispatcher commit, now that actually adds the enum entry in the correct place in the first place. Okay, and essentially you can do any kind of arbitrary editing with interactive rebase, which I want to just show here quickly. So of course you can stop to edit, you can move commits around as we've seen, you can squash commits arbitrarily, and you can revert things along the way. You can select commits you don't like and drop them, and you can make all of these changes in a single interactive rebase, and then as you hit start rebasing, there will be some Git work done. You might have some conflicts along the way. I've made random changes, so that makes sense. And then you can generally just lean back, and all of those changes you've set up will be applied for you. I want to show one last thing which is useful to know about. Let me hop over to the main branch, and let's say that I see something nice on a feature branch somewhere. For example, there's this update to Gradle manage devices here, and let's say that I don't have time to review all of the changes that are part of that feature branch, but I want this specific commit to really quickly make it back into main. For this, I could select the main branch, create a new branch from it. So this would be, I don't know, feature API 31 or something like that. And on this branch, I can simply cherry pick this commit. So take that existing commit from the middle of some feature branch and place it on my current one. You can, of course, right-click and then find the option again. There it is, cherry pick around the top. But this is also marked with this great cherry icon on top of the log view. So you can just hit cherry pick, and now we have a branch that only contains this single commit. We could push that and get it into the main with a quick PR. And with that, we are pretty much at the end of our talk here. Let me see if I can still find the correct Scratch file for what we've covered. So these are the topics that we've looked at. If you want to learn more about using Git in Android Studio, I have a bunch of resources on my website. You can follow me, of course, on social media. You can find me at any point during the conference, whether to talk about the topic of this talk, anything else related to tooling. And of course, there's going to be office hours for Kotlin multi-platform in the afternoon, which I would love to see you at and chat about Kotlin. And yeah, with that, that's a wrap. We're just on time. Thank you so much for attending this talk, and have a great rest of the conference.